Hey, this is Todd Pipes from Deep Blue Something, and you are listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter at NoShockPod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Todd Pipes, a Deep Blue Something.
Yeah, in preparations of releasing some new Deep Blue Something music here in the near future, correct?
Yeah.
Well, so hey, it was a great interview. Let's get to it.
All right, good night.
Good night. Todd, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce to you my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Todd, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Hey, we're beyond excited to have you. I know we're a week late, but hey, let's do this, man.
Yeah.
Well, let's get right into it. Deep Blue Something is in the process of creating some new music right now. Can you give our listeners an insight of this new musical venture for the band?
We had done an EP a few years ago, and then a couple of singles here and there, and then we just decided it's time to do like another EP. So it just looks like we're going to do like 6 or 7 songs. And the one thing that we have decided is that it is going to be unapologetically 90s sounding.
Yeah, very good.
I think that it is a mistake for older artists, and I use the term very loosely, not the older part, the artist part, to try to be current. I think it's a bad move. And so we're just not, we've never tried to really be current with the newer stuff that we're doing, but this time we're just like, nah, it needs to sound like it came out in 92. So that's what we're going for. See what happens.
Very nice.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, in 2022, you guys had a new single, Cherry Lime Riquet. What can you tell me about that?
That was one that we had done a while back, and we just didn't think that the recording was right, and we were kind of goofing around, and we were like, hey, let's redo this just for fun and do it kind of the way, we had demoed it way back in the day and did that, and I think it's like 7.5 minutes long, so we definitely weren't trying to get on the radio or anything with that, but it was just one of those ones we played live a lot and thought it'd be fun to kind of readdress.
Yeah, very good. Well, we know that, sales for the tangible product are not what they were. And you haven't released an EP since 2015, and you talk about releasing another EP now here in the near future. For you and the rest of the band, do you kind of feel like the EP fits the band's, I guess, maybe process of recording new music better than the traditional LP?
Yeah, mostly because I just don't think people have the attention span for more than 5 or 6 songs at a time. And even with the EP, I think that we're going to probably release like one single at a time. We'll probably do 3 singles or so and then release the rest of it together. But I think that old mode of, we've got to make this album with 12 or 13 songs on it. It's like, it's great, I guess, if it takes off. But if you've released it all at one time and it doesn't take off right away, well, 2 weeks later, people have forgotten about it. You know, I saw that with that last Van Halen record, which was an amazing record. I thought A Different Kind of Truth. It's an amazing record, but they picked the wrong single. They did this jackass song called Tattoo.
Yes.
and it wasn't that good. And then people kind of went, and then that was it. 2 weeks later, it was over. And I'm sitting there going, no, everybody's missing it. They picked the wrong single. The rest of the album is classic Van Halen. But everybody lost interest, and that was that.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
Well, tell us about some of these new songs you're writing. Are there? I know you said you wanted to go to a throwback sound, but are they going to be all new songs, or do you have any older material you're reworking?
No, yeah, this is all definitely brand new.
Nice.
I mean, I think Toby and I both will keep like bits and pieces of old songs. Like if it doesn't, you write a song and then you only like part of it and then you put it on a new thing. All writers do that. But I think all of these are very, very recent, like written within the last 6 months or a year, which is actually kind of interesting because usually we do piece stuff together.
Oh, very good. Back to the EP. Back in the day, an EP was one of those kind of things you just didn't come across very much. It was a band would put it out, very sparsely. But as now, like I said, the sales are not what they are. Do you kind of see the movement with bands such as yourself? If they're going to create a tangible product to put it out there, bands shying away from the LP and just steering directly toward an EP type of format?
Maybe. One thing I have noticed is that if people put out kind of singles and then maybe they do an EP, after a little bit, they'll kind of compile several things together and maybe release that as a vinyl thing, And so I think that that's kind of a good move. Like, if you've released some stuff and then you've got this laying around, well, then this gives people an interesting thing too for like vinyl collectors and stuff. So I could see that, but I do think that the EP, the 4 or 5 songs together, it's probably a good move because otherwise, if you do the single thing, which a lot of people are doing, just one song at a time, well, that's awesome, except for there's some songs that you don't want to be a single. There's some songs that you want to be an album track. Yes. Right? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's kind of a moody one. Maybe you have a few songs linked together and it makes one big piece. Well, that needs to be a part of something. So maybe the EP kind of crosses the gap between, the singles idea and then a full-length album. It's just like it's a couple of singles plus a couple of album tracks. There you go. Maybe that works.
No. Well, I guess the thing that comes across for me for an EP as just the fan of music is that I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on an artist because you feel like, man, every single song has got to be top notch to be on this album, opposed to an LP where you have 12, 13 songs where maybe a few songs could be some filler. They don't have to be the most strongest songs. Do you feel like when you put an EP out, like, man, we have got to have our A game on every single song?
Yeah, but I think you're exactly right. But I think that they're towards the end of the album age, right? That there were lots of records that did have, let's say, 3 or 4 strong songs, and then the rest of the album really kind of was filler. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like there's a fine line between, no, this isn't a single, but we're totally behind this, and then there's also, I don't know, we need 3 more songs. Let's just stick this on there, right? So you're right. The EP, there's a bit of pressure, but maybe that's healthy because of, laziness will creep in, man. Like if you've got to have that thing, especially when you went from the original vinyl era to CDs. Because remember, like on vinyl, you could have 8 songs, and that's a full-length album.
Yes.
Well, on a CD, that looks kind of thin, so you got to put extra songs. Remember, people were putting like 15 songs on an album, and I think that's what created that filler mentality. And maybe, people got tired of that, I think, buying a record and going, well, I do like the single, and I like maybe this other one, but the rest of this is kind of hurting, Maybe that led to some of that Napster stuff, because people felt like they were being ripped off a little bit. So maybe this is healthy. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough.
So one of the things for me revisiting some of the band's work, after 30 years is your band sounds really, really tight and cohesive. Is that something you guys had to work on for a long time, or did it come pretty natural to you guys?
We did it then, and we still do it now. We are like obsessive compulsive when it comes to rehearsing, because we didn't know any other method of being good. Like when I transferred up to University of North Texas, big music school, bands everywhere, all this stuff, right? The only thing that I knew to do was to try to out-practice everyone so that we could play our songs better than other people were playing their songs, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I know that just comes from, like if you grow up playing sports, sometimes the coach knows that maybe you don't have as much talent as another team, but if you work hard enough, you can overcome other things. And I think we all came from that background. Now, I think we were maybe a little, we kind of underestimated ourselves as far as the talent end, but I think that it was healthy that we kind of really busted our asses. Like, I mean, I'm not joking. We would rehearse for like 6 hours a day, like mentally.
Yeah.
And we still do. Like if we have a show, we will get together and rehearse like maniacs. It's not like we haven't played these songs 10,000 times, right? But it's just something about that, And I remember when we first started playing, like the sound men they would say, hey, how long have you guys been together? Like, oh, we've only been together a couple of months. And they would say, like, it sounds like y'all have been playing together for years. And it's like, oh, man, that's all you need, right?
Yeah.
If you get something like that from a sound man, maybe you get a couple of comments like that. And then it's like, okay, we're never going to stop doing this. And so, yeah, we did. We cultivated that tightness. And I don't know, it keeps things fun. That way, if something goes wrong, you've practiced enough to overcome, that kind of thing. So it works.
Yeah, very good.
Well, I saw recently you were out on the road with Marcy's Playground. How many shows are you guys playing a year?
That was just a couple of random shows. We were up in New York, and we had done some other stuff this past summer with Everclear and Sister
Nice.
Hazel and some other bands. And I had funnily enough, never met the Marcy Playground guys. They're super nice. And so I think maybe we'll try to hook up with them again in the future. That was pretty fun. And that's a band too that, a lot of people know their hit, but the band itself, like they're very different. They're much more kind of, they're much more of a straight ahead rock band than you might think of just by hearing the single. I thought they were outstanding.
Well, speaking of the tour packages, such as when you're going on, playing shows in the summertime with 3 and 4 different bands from that era that had humongous hits. For you, Heritage Act that Deep Blue Something is, along with those other bands, do you feel as though that maybe has given maybe a renaissance to these bands to go out and play these live shows as a package opposed to trying to do it by yourself?
It's way smarter to do it together, because you have to think, I know how I am. For me to get up off the couch and go watch a band, it's got to be something, right? So if I look at a bill and I think, oh, there's these 2 bands together, well, now maybe I'm really thinking about going, And so I have to think that our audience is roughly the same. You got to give them a reason. So if you see 3 bands together and you think, yeah, that's great, And the thing that I think is really beneficial, and one thing that I I'd really kind of thought about when we were with Everclear and Sister Hazel, that people really appreciate the musicianship of all of us old guys, because a lot of the young dudes, they can't really play very well, you know. So when you get three of these older bands, you know, and we haven't completely gone to pot. You can kind of hold it together a little bit visually, but you can still play. Like, people are like, dang, this is, you know, and you turn on a lot of young people that way that maybe they're out for like kind of one of these May Day festivals thing, you know, and they're there with their family having fun, and you're up there playing, and they're like, oh, okay, I have heard that one song, but now this is outstanding, you know. So that it definitely helps.
Very good.
Talking earlier about revisiting some of your sound from back in the day, that first 11th song, your first album from 1993. Can you talk a little bit more about that acoustic rock sound? I didn't, I hadn't listened to it in a long time, and revisiting it was like there was more rock sound there, like more rock sound there than I remembered when, like you kind of alluded to some of the other bands.
Yeah.
Like I got a little bit of a early live vibe, like the Mental Julia era, that kind of acoustic rock undertones. Can you talk about some of your bass influences?
Well, my bass influences are all over the place. I really, I started like everybody else, kind of picking through some stuff. But as I was really learning to play the bass, I was focusing on like 3 albums. So I had Rush, Moving Pictures. I had the soundtrack to The Kids Are All Right, and I had Led Zeppelin 2, right? So all 3 of these records, that's just monster bass players, right? Well, young Todd doesn't know that these guys are awesome. I just think that I just haven't paid attention to the bass that much before, and this is how all bass players are. So I'm just going crazy. I'm talking about, like, I'm in 6th, 7th grade, right? And I'm learning all this stuff, and I got really good really quickly, mostly because I didn't know any better. So I'm just sitting there thinking, well, if this Geddy Lee guy can do this, I suppose I better get on there, And so I did. And then my high school band really kind of got into like hair metal stuff, which is okay, except it's not exactly exciting from a bass perspective. And so that's what kind of got me turned on to like the new wave stuff, because all those British bands had amazing bass players, right? So I'm listening to The Cure. I'm completely obsessed with John Taylor from Duran Duran. I discover Mark King from Level 42, and I'm like, oh, cool. So I just kept going, and I've just constantly tried to develop my sound. The thing that sucks, to be honest with you, is I really don't care for singing. I don't like it. I would rather be the bass player, because, having to play and sing at the same time, you have to kind of not dumb it down, but simplify. If you notice, like when Geddy's singing, his parts are a little simpler, and then he kind of goes nuts. And so I've had to kind of do the same thing. Playing bass and singing is not the same as playing guitar and singing. I don't know why, but it is different.
Oh, very good. As we look at the landscape of the rock and roll business, it's no longer the leader in pop culture. Rock and roll was predicated on album sales, live shows as a benchmark for the popular status is pop culture. Album sales are nil, and the concert ticket prices are absurd. What will it take, do you think, to get rock and roll back to being number one in pop culture, in today's pop culture?
Jeez. It's going to take a whole new movement, I think. Man, that's a fantastic question. I mean, because you gotta think, there are bands that hold guitars, but you can't hear them. Like, there's not guitar bands as much. I mean, on the metal end, metal is doing fantastic. There's amazing metal bands.
Yes.
Like, I listen to it's just astounding. And that's really what I listen to more than anything else is metal, just because that's where the interesting guitar music is. But it's going to take something like, when grunge came around and everybody got all excited. It wasn't really new, but people thought it was, and people got all excited, and that was a big guitar band era. The problem is we've cycled through a lot of stuff. So I don't know that you could suddenly unless maybe there's a grunge resurgence. I don't know, because the real problem is, a lot of teenagers listen to hip hop, which I don't understand. Like, I don't understand, like, what part of that culture are you identifying with? And most of it is, well, they listen to it because it's on the radio. True. And well, why is it on the radio? Well, because you're listening to it. And it just creates this feedback loop of really pretty lame music, I don't know. They know guitar stuff because of playing, like, what's the game where you drive around and shoot everybody?
Grand Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto, yeah.
Grand Theft Auto. Like, they know all these classic rock songs, and they like them. But they're not actively pursuing it. Music has become much more passive. Yeah. So it's going to take somebody that comes along that kind of lights a fire under everybody. And because what it takes is people starting bands of their own, and it's going to take a movement like that to get everybody going again. So I don't know. I wish I could predict something like that.
And don't you feel, though, is we need like an injection of another some type of MTV era of some sort to get it going again?
There needs to be something. I just don't know what it is. I mean, if there was another thing, actually, I don't know how MTV or any channel like that would work, but it's just got to come up from the ground, because the reason grunge had that revival, or had that when it kind of took off, is because for whatever reason in the 90s it was hip to go watch local bands play. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what people did. Like in the 80s, people went to dance clubs. Yes. In the 90s, you went to a rock club. Well, that's why. I have no idea, but it changed, and people did that. So you would get, random sorority girl, hey, what are we doing? Hey, let's go over to so-and-so. There's some bands playing. Well, you didn't have that in the 80s, and you don't have that now. So it's just got to be something that, that happens that changes everything. But I don't know. It's not looking good. There's a lot of rock clubs closing in Dallas. I know that just because of bad attendance.
Yeah. I mean, Dallas-Fort Worth was the hotbed at one time for rock and roll music, correct?
Oh, man, it was unbelievable here. And I don't think the weird thing about Dallas in the 90s was that so many people didn't know that all of these bands were from the same area, because none of us sounded alike. We didn't sound anything like the Toadies, or the Dixie Chicks, or Lisa Loeb, or Erykah Badu, or Pantera. Yep. We all sounded different, but we were all coming up at the same time. It was really weird, and there's a ton of other bands I'm not even thinking of, but Old 97s and Tripping Daisy and the Nixons and all that. Everybody was from this little area. Mm-hmm. But since we all sounded different, nobody said, oh, the Dallas sound, because we didn't have that, not like Seattle did, or even like Athens before that,
Absolutely. Jeff, you got the next one?
With your brother Toby, you guys have done some work as producers. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the bands you've helped?
Yeah. It was kind of the producing that sort of led me astray and made me not very motivated to go on tour anymore. I loved it. I had always been interested in it. And so we had some downtime, and we had built a studio for our own recording. And one of the first bands I did was this band called Flicker Stick. And they ended up on that Bands on the Run thing with VH1 and got a record deal and all this stuff. And it was like, oh, that's great. And so then their manager says, hey, I've got this other band. They're called Drowning Pool. Are you interested? I was like, sure, bring them on by. And I kind of talked with them, and I explained, hey, I know I'm the Breakfast at Tiffany's guy. I get that. But rest assured that we have common ground, And we started talking about Ministry albums and all this, and they were like, "Oh, okay, this guy knows what's going on." So we had this common language, and so the next thing you know, I'm in there recording "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor," and that was the second record I had ever done, and nice. We got them a record deal, and then I was thinking, I can record bands, and I can sleep in my own bed. This is sort of awesome. And then that was sort of the demise. Yeah. Hey, shouldn't we be doing a record? Yeah, but I've got these other records to do. We'll get to that. And then slowly we all kind of just started doing other things. But I love producing. That was a good time.
Well, I guess that would bring up the next question would be, as far as on a creative satisfaction level for yourself, where do you get more satisfaction? On the producing end of things, or the the songwriting and performing and recording of your own music?
Anything that's in the studio, I love it. If I'm producing in the studio, I love it. Mostly what I do now is mastering, but I'm still in the studio. If I'm recording us, it's awesome. The thing that I don't love that much is playing live. I'm perfectly comfortable doing it. I think we're really good live, but if I never played a show again, I don't know that I would notice it. If I couldn't get in the studio, I'd probably freak out because I really, really, really do enjoy it. So does that kind of make sense, though?
Oh, absolutely.
Recording is awesome if it's us or anybody else. I know that we have to play live, and we have a great time with the bros when we're playing, but I need to be in the studio. That's the difference.
Well, very good.
Well, what about? I mean, I know you said you don't like playing live, but do you ever miss the video days? I mean, when you guys made some videos for MTV back in the day. Do you ever dabble with videos with your new songs?
I hate making videos. I feel so stupid. I don't like it. Like every time they wanted us to make a video, and we've made a decent amount. I'm like, bring a camera and just shoot footage of us playing live. If you want us to look normal, just shoot live footage. Don't make us stand there and say the words. I'm not an actor. I hated them. I hated them then. I hate doing them now. It's awful. It's so unnatural. And some people are great. And there's always some guy going, come on, give it to the camera. Like, what does that mean, dude? I don't even... It's horrible. And then, like the Brexit Tiffany's video, it's okay. But knowing how much money was spent on that crazy thing of us sitting there in front of Tiffany's and then jumping around in a park, I'm like, really? Is this what we're doing? I don't know, man. It's not my thing.
Well, since the inception of the band, you've released, 4 LPs, and how many EPs? Was it 3?
Just one EP.
I think the one in 2015.
Is that right? Was it just one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one EP, lots of singles, and then 3 full lengths.
Okay.
I think.
Okay, so
4. That's right. I forgot. There was that one in there. There's one record that has some songs from a European release on it and some other stuff. Yeah, okay. So 3 or 4, yeah.
Okay, so since the band's inception, through the studio LP releases and EP release and whatever else, as far as body of work goes, do you have a favorite album from the band, and do you also have an album that you feel like maybe you wish you had a redo on?
Ooh, that's awesome. I think our best record we ever did was Byzantium. I think it's really well done. I think it's cohesive. It was focused. It wasn't released worldwide until actually somewhat recently. I think we could have maybe gotten rid of a couple of songs because that one has 15. I think it probably 13 would have been better, but that's okay. Still, as far as a whole album, that one's killer. As far as wanting to redo it, I think the second half of the Home album, we were doing a couple of more songs from that when we were rehearsing, and I hadn't listened to it in years. So I'm just like, what the hell was going on in the second half of this album? Like, we have a song called I Can Wait on Home. I don't remember whose decision was it for it to be an acoustic song. That song's like a good rock song, and on the album, it's acoustic. I'm like, I don't remember that. And whoever thought of it, it was a bad idea. So I'd love to readdress that.
Very good.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun. I think it would be fun to re-record that original 11th song. Because we recorded that whole thing in a day and a half. It's recorded in this guy's front room of a duplex, all of us playing live. It sounds surprisingly good, but we were so young and so new, we didn't know what we were doing. It would be kind of fun to readdress those songs, I think.
Oh, so cool. Jeff, you got the next one?
Well, yeah, you also, our listeners may or may not know, you have one solo album and I think 2 EPs. Can you talk a little bit about that venture into kind of doing it on your own?
Yeah. Toby had been in several side projects, and I was always kind of head down and producing and stuff, but I was writing a lot, and I kept thinking about maybe doing some stuff. And every time I would start, I would think, I don't like the way it sounds, and then abandon it. And so one day I didn't have anybody in the studio, and I sat down and I started doing something, and it came out of the speakers exactly like what was in my head. And I thought, okay, might as well follow this. And so that was that Taurus Petals album. Yeah. And I did most of it just at home and some other stuff. And it was very weird because there was nobody to argue with. You know, like when you're in a band, there's always like these little disagreements and arguments. And somebody to tell you, hey, that really sucks. You know, that's a bad idea. You know, when you're all by yourself, there's nobody to tell you that. So on the one hand, it's really freeing. Yeah. On the other hand, I kept thinking this would probably go a lot faster if I just pick up the phone and get everybody involved. But I just kept kind of plowing ahead. And I got to the end and I thought, okay, well, that was a good experiment. And then as time went by, you know what's funny is the second EP, what was it? Mainsail to Sky King. That was the second one, I think.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be a Deep Blue Something record, actually. And I couldn't get our drummer on the phone. And so I had done these demos, and I'm talking to Toby and Kirk. And I'm like, guys, I keep working on these songs. If I pick up the phone and call a drummer, this thing's done. What am I supposed to do here? And they said, just call a drummer. Just finish it. Just make it a Todd record. And I said, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, because we were not having great communication at the time. And so that's why the Mainsail to Sky King is supposed to be a Deep Blue Something record. I actually forgot about that till right now.
We learn something new every day.
We all got on the phone for this. Yeah. Yeah, I remember something new every day.
As far as songwriting goes, we talk to many artists that have a whole bunch of songs in their vault that they haven't released, and then we talk to some artists that say, "I don't have anything in my vault. I've released everything. Everything that I write and record, I put out there." For you, songwriting and your brother, whether it's your solo stuff or Deep Blue Something stuff, do you have quite a few songs that are in the vault that haven't been released?
Oh, I have tons and tons and tons. I have stuff that has been, some songs that are just kind of sketches so I don't forget them, some songs that have been fully recorded. We've got a few Deep Blue Something songs that are recorded and mixed, and for whatever reason we just thought, let's hold on to this for now. So there's tons and tons of stuff. What I try to do when I'm writing is don't force it. If it doesn't seem just right, it's not going to disappear. Just leave it there for a bit. It might make sense next year, or it might make sense in a different context. Because we were talking about album tracks earlier.
Yeah.
So one of the songs that we had done, we all love it, but it's not a single. But I think it would be a really good album track. So it might be one of those things that we decide, hey, let's put it at the end of this EP, or maybe it goes on the next album. But to release it right now doesn't make sense. And so I don't know. I just like to keep stuff on. And I tell the other guys too, just constantly make little sketches. You never know. You never, because there might be a song that I'm frustrated with, that I've got a verse and I can't go anywhere. And so I'll send it to one of the other guys, and Kirk might go, dude, I've got a chorus that fits with this perfectly. I'll change the key and this will be. And so we've done a couple of those on this new record. Kirk had this one song. He said, man, I've got a chorus and I have no idea what to do in the verse. And I said, send it. And I wrote the song that day, and then it turned out great. So I'm glad he didn't throw that out, because he was frustrated or whatever. And that's another good thing about, the modern era. Man, I have probably 200 song ideas that's just in my phone. Because I'll get an idea and I'll just turn on that voice memo and record it real quick, I should probably back that up at some point.
Very good.
Now that I think about it.
Jeff, you got the next one?
Well, in your bio to us, you talked a little bit about Formula One. Are you a big fan? Or did you attend the race last weekend in Austin?
I did not. So my daughter is also a big Formula One fan, and she goes to University of Texas. And we were just kind of lamenting the fact that we just didn't get it together to go. And we both agree, too, though, that what we would really like to see in person, I'd like to see the practice laps, and I'd like to see qualifying. But I still think that watching the whole race might be better on TV because you're not just looking at the one curve, you know. But I love all the technology. I love the tire strategy. You know, Kate and my daughter and I, we have our favorite drivers and the drivers we root against. You know, I thought it was absolutely awesome that Hamilton got disqualified last week because he's such a crybaby. Oh, my gosh, for a guy to be so good for so long and to be such a crybaby. And actually, I don't really dislike him, but I dislike that Toto Wolff guy, the head of Mercedes.
Yeah.
Oh, I cheer against him. That is such a joy.
What do you think about Andretti's and Cadillac coming in the future?
I think it's super interesting, but I do understand the concern. It's like, well, what's the limit? Are we going to end up with 50 cars out there one day? You know, it would be kind of interesting. I don't think it will ever happen, but like in professional soccer, if you don't win a certain amount, you get relegated down to the next division.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that.
Yeah,
that could be a cool thing, you know. But Andretti Racing has a great history. Cadillac does amazing things in the endurance races, you know. So I think their engine stuff is going to be fantastic. It's just a matter of, is the culture going to work?
Exactly.
So
exactly. Well, speaking of culture, you've spoke of your dislike of the hipster culture and movement of the modern era, and I can agree with you. I don't want to step on any of our listeners that are hipsters out there, but it is a.
Right, you have to be careful. Yeah.
It is a complicated culture of sorts. Can we kind of get your take on it?
Okay, here's what I have observed. Okay, because the latest thing that I've noticed is the hipsters have somehow discovered funk, as if funk didn't exist since the 70s, right? And you see these hipster funk bands, and you're going, hey, you know, this is not new. It's not new at all. And what you're doing is like 8 bars of what could be a great song, but you're just doing those 8 bars for like 12 minutes, right? And the whole thing with the hipster culture is they kind of straddle this weird line between I'm taking this really seriously and, well, you know, I'm just being ironic. I don't really like this crap. And it's like, well, which is it? And they act like it's both at the same time. And so it kind of there's hipster metal bands. Like there's a hipster black metal band.
That is weird.
And they do all this stuff, and you're like, well, which is it? Are you making fun of it, or are you into it?
Exactly.
And if you're into it, why? They dress so weird. The fashion's so odd. But I don't know. I shouldn't say things because I always get in trouble, shoot my mouth off. But yeah, I'm confused by it. I guess I should appreciate the enthusiasm that they're listening to music. I just wish that what they were doing was a better version of it. How's that?
I couldn't agree more. So we are running out of our allotted time. We have one more question for you, then we'll leave you alone for the evening. Fair enough?
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
So ask this question to all of our guests. This is going to be the toughest one of the night. So the mystery of rock and roll is no longer a thing because of the dawning of the internet and all the different social medias out there. There's no Zeppelin, there's no Kiss, there's no Queen, there's nothing of that stuff. There's no cult status anymore with these bands. For you, the fan, and the artist yourself, what do you prefer? This new age of accessibility, or do you miss that mystique of rock and roll?
Yeah, I miss the mystery. Absolutely. Because the problem now is that you realize that all of these people are just normal people. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. Because inevitably the rhythm guitar player says something stupid on Twitter or X or whatever it's called, mm-hmm. right? And you realize, oh, he's a really good rhythm guitar player, but he's kind of a dumbass, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas back in the day, I didn't know what Robert Plant's opinions were on anything. He was just Robert Plant, and Jimmy Page was Jimmy Page, and they were the essence of cool. And that's an awesome thing, you know. I miss that to an extent because you can elevate things in your own mind. It makes the music more meaningful. But when it's a little too pedestrian, it takes something away, I think. And I noticed that kids don't, you know, you don't scrawl band logos on your notebook anymore.
No.
Right? You like the music, but back in the day, it was how you identified. You identified with Van Halen because they're freaking awesome, right? If you saw some tough-looking kid and you were worried about you were going to get in a fight, and you know, oh, he's got a Rush shirt on. Well, I'm not going to get in a fight with this kid. He's plainly awesome. He's wearing a Rush shirt. You know, even though I thought he was going to knife me a minute ago, all I have to say is, hey, man, did you go to that show? And it's all good, right? And you got a buddy for the rest of your life.
That's right.
So the mystique created more meaning, and the meaning gave you an identity. And I do truly miss that.
Oh, well said. Well, we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote?
Not in the immediate sense, because I think, you know, we got a ways to go on our record, but, you know, just keep an eye out for it. You know, maybe follow us on the dreaded social media, and we'll try to maybe make a post here and there about when it comes out.
Very good. Well, this is how things are going to work out once we're ready to release this. Jeff, the editing wizard over here, will get it all cleaned up, and we'll send you the link, and please share it wherever you possibly can.
We'll do it, man.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Todd. We appreciate
Todd,
it.
We really had a good time tonight.
Right on. All right, excellent.
All right, man. Take care. Thank you so much. Good night.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, see y'all.
kiss their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out both their eyes. They roll the dice. Take your chances.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The Sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.